My name is Katherine, and this is my testimony.
My name is Michael O'Connor, and this is my testimony. Elementary school, I was diagnosed with Alport's. My uncle also has it, and it's kind of hereditary. It goes through family, and I would say I was in my younger years, I had to start wearing a hearing aid due to the Alport's, and I've worn them ever since. I was probably 18, 19, and my vision started to go. The few things that Alport's affects is your hearing, vision, and your kidneys. So going through life knowing at a young age that eventually my kidneys would fail, not knowing when, it never stopped me from doing anything that I wanted to do, but it was definitely interesting to have that in your mind as a kid. It wasn't until I was 23 that my kidneys finally quit working. My blood pressure was through the roof. Had no idea that that's what it was. I was at work and just dizzy, couldn't hardly keep my eyes straight, and went to the doctor. They couldn't really tell me anything, so then I went to my nephrologist, and they did some tests. Come back in, and he's like, "So, kidney's not working. We're gonna have to put you on dialysis." And at 23, a month later, we were in the hospital. Got my dialysis tube put in. I say about a month later, started dialysis with the clinic, going there daily to get the routine down and get all that, whatever they had to teach me and do all this other stuff. And then it was probably, I would say almost 18 months before I finally got a kidney transplant. And I was 24, I want to say. And that kidney worked absolutely wonderful. Day one, like it's on the operating table, they said my kidney started working immediately, which is absolutely amazing. Was a perfect match to the donor, and that was just awesome. I mean, to have somebody be a complete match. The very first person that got tested was a perfect match. That was just amazing. And that lasted for roughly, I would say, 9 years maybe. And then it started to get into the rejection mode. Went to Charleston, and it was more for a routine visit. And they checked me out, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna need you to come back in a few months for just a follow-up." And we and Valerie were heading to vacation in Florida, and went to the doctor, and they said, "Well, we're gonna have to admit you." I'm like, "Oh, well, great." So then we been through all that. I mean, we make the best of whatever situation we had. We stayed in the hospital, I think 3 nights, and seeing how we were both already had our vacation time, spent the rest of the week there. And at that moment, they said they were going to try a few things to get it jump started back, but obviously that did not work. It was probably December of that year that they finally said, we went to a visit, and they said there's no chance for this kidney to function again. And at that point, I think it was working 20%, which is not good with just one kidney. So swelling in my legs, all the different symptoms, and it was difficult. Still working. Had a few, and that was December. So then fast forward to July of that year. That's when my kidney was functioning at such a low rate that they finally decided to put me on dialysis again. July 21st, I believe it was. And during that time, I hate to go back on dialysis. I'm older. It was a little more difficult. Had to be on the machine longer. Had to stay out of work. I went on disability, and being on the machine for just over 10 hours every night, dealing with that, and get off of that, and then I'm exhausted, couldn't do anything. It was interesting, let me say least. And then, through that whole time, ups and downs and different things that you go through physically and mentally. That was a lot. I had my wife and the kids, but that's, you don't want to show your kids the weakness. And then fast forward to say 6 months later, in December, I ended up getting a phone call, and I think it was November. I was headed to work to hand in my paperwork for my disability, and a lady called me and said, "We have found a kidney for you." And she's like, "It's not going to be this week," because she told me when she called it would be within a week. I was like, I got all excited. I was like, dang it. But she's like, "It's going to be within a month." So I was stoked, because I was waiting for that, and then the way I was feeling, it was just such an amazing time. And then the day that it was supposed to happen, we had family traveling with us. Everybody was there to support me, and we got there, pulled in the garage, and she called me and she said, "Where are you at?" I said, "I'm right here in the parking garage, about to walk inside." She said, "Well, the person that was supposed to donate in New Jersey didn't show up. She thought it was for the next day." So we were like, another little bump. And so we got back in the car, drove all the way back home, and then came back the next day and was able to have the transplant and everything. So that was amazing to get it again. This time I had a little more difficulties straight out the gate. It wasn't as responsive as the first time, maybe because of my age or whatever, but they got all the kinks worked out, and everything came back and was working smooth after that, and was able to go back to work. Been working ever since. Been healthy. Had one other time about a year later after that, had a fever, and it was 103 point whatever it was. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They did multiple tests and still don't know why it was doing that. But luckily, the kidney that was functioning super well is now functioning a little less, but it has maintained that function ever since. And I can't be more happy about that. So it's going strong today.
I did not know Michael O'Connor. I've been going to church here maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years. Did not know Michael. I was much more familiar with Valerie and the girls serving in the nursery, and so I knew Alyssa and Chloe, and heard through the church and through just prayer requests and everything that Michael was having to go back on dialysis and kidney failure. And I remember telling Valerie, "If there's anything I can do, please let me know." And by anything I can do, I meant a casserole, a babysitting the girls, something like that, okay? Let's just be clear here. And so I remember that would have been about in December when this round, I guess, first started. And then it was either February or March, early in March, a Sunday night, had prayer for you, called you down to the altar, called the congregation to the altar, everyone laid hands. It was very, very crowded at the altar, so I stayed in the pew. And of course, stretched my hand toward him and praying, and my husband, Jerry, had not come with me to service that night or anything, and prayed. And I heard, "Get tested." And I looked around. What is that? Get tested. Now, I'm familiar with transplants because my father was a heart transplant many years earlier. Very, very successful, and so the whole transplant idea is not foreign to me. I would like to say that I went immediately from that prayer service, discussed it with my husband, discussed it with my family, and started the process. That's not what happened. it's, for me, it was just, did I hear this correctly? Me? Why me? How could I possibly play this big a role in someone's life? And then the other part of it is, I am not a fan of doctors and hospitals, and the whole idea of surgery is just, no thank you. So I didn't do anything with it, didn't talk to Jerry about it, didn't mention it to a soul, and the Lord would not leave me alone. Finally, so that's February or March, finally in May, late in May, I made a call to MUSC and told them that I would be interested in learning more about being a donor. And they explained the whole process to me, went and got tested, blood test first, and then made an appointment to go to MUSC in late June of that year. That would have been 2015, I think, June of 2015, and went and got tested, and it's all kinds of testing, CTs and MRIs and ultrasounds and x-rays and a psych eval, and I've never had to do any of that kind of stuff before, so it's just wow. To go from not liking doctors and hospitals to all of that was just wow. But I had complete peace and I was okay with it. And again, I just cannot emphasize enough, that was not Katherine. That was nothing but the good Lord and the Holy Spirit, because that was none of me. So June 23rd was when I went to MUSC to get tested. And it was not, I promise you, until about June 20th that I even told my husband what I was doing or thinking or considering. And he said he just didn't understand. He did not understand. And I said, don't worry about it, because it could come back that I am not a suitable donor. Don't even worry about it. We'll have further discussion if it comes to that. And I got the call that my kidneys were just perfect. And if I would really consider this, it would be physically I was a fine. The kidney was just wonderful. And so we had lots of discussions about this, and what brought us peace, and the conclusion was, health is a gift from God. Everything we have is a gift from God. You can live with one kidney. You don't need two kidneys. And for me to have been given two wonderful kidneys, if I could give one away, then I should do it. Well, we were not a match. My kidney did not match what Michael needed, but MUSC has what they call the exchange program. So they set us up, and the first one that came along, and I have to laugh because here at the season that we're in, we had the fall festival, and I had gotten the call the day before, and the transplant coordinator said, don't say anything to Michael, please don't say anything to Michael, but we're working on a 12-way donation, and we would like to set it up for November, so we're just contacting the donors first, and if we can do this and everything. And then that night was the fall festival at PSCOG, and I'm there in my little booth, and y'all, the O'Connor family is over there in their booth, and I'm like, I've got a secret. And then 2 days later I got the call, never mind. It broke my heart, and I just thought, oh, and she said, but we're going to keep trying. So then the call came again in December, and she said it was a 6-way exchange this time, and you were going to go first in December, and they had enough confidence that I would stick with it and not back out or whatever. And so I donated in January, and absolutely zero problem with the operation, zero problem with recovery. My one concern going into it was I didn't want to have to take pain medicine. I didn't want to have narcotics or opioids or whatever. I just wasn't interested in that. And they said that's very unusual, and of course, we can't guarantee that or anything. But again, the good Lord provided, and they took me off. Didn't even put a pain pump on me after surgery, which there's been a couple of other people in the church that have donated kidneys, and they had to be on pain pumps and whatever. So that is just the good Lord hearing my prayer and protecting me and giving me just what I needed. So the transplant was on, or the explant was on Wednesday, spent Wednesday night in the hospital and came home Thursday. So not even an overnight stay in the hospital. And everything has just been fine. There's the only thing I have to look out for is sodium. I just can't eat a whole lot of salt or salty things or anything. I remember the first year after the transplant, I did not have canned soups. I did not have Subway because of all the salt and preservatives. I've kind of let that slide now with no effects. They told me to expect that I might have to go on blood pressure medicine because, again, one kidney and just increase the chance. There's been none of that in 7 years. So the good Lord has just taken care of me.
I didn't even know my wife knew you. To be honest, I was like,
yeah.
I mean, it's acquaintances at church. Some people just at church, and then that's it. Like, you don't see them anywhere else. Like, even as big as Florence is, even if you live near them, most of the time you don't ever see them anywhere unless you come to church. So it's crazy how it all came together, how the puzzle came. Like, I mean, it was interesting to see, like, just hearing that story, like how that worked. I had no idea about that. It's amazing. I ain't gonna lie.
I will say this: I wanted to stay anonymous.
Yeah.
When and that was one of the first questions I had for it in USC. Can I just? I just didn't want it to be a thing. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I asked, could I stay anonymous? And they said, yeah, you can do that. We cannot guarantee anonymity, but that can certainly happen. And Valerie has told me that the only way, or that she knew early on that I had been tested because my name showed up on some lab work
Yes.
that y'all got the bill for.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone knows this or not, but I didn't have any expense. The recipient's insurance picks up both the receiving and the donating.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wanted to slide in under the radar.
Yeah. We opened up with the bill, and I was like, that's not me. What is this? And we got looking at it, and I was like, she's like, well, I don't know what that is. And we started looking at it. It's like, oh, she got tested. I was like, ah. But we had a few other bills after that. A few people had got tested. A couple of them didn't make it past a certain point. Some of them found out that their kidneys weren't working properly, so they weren't a candidate, which I hope that helped them get whatever help that they needed because their kidney wasn't functioning properly. So, I mean, there was a lot of things going on. Like, I remember just like when I was on dialysis, so I have to go to the hospital every week to get a shot, heparin, to get my red blood count up. So I was pulling in, and she called me, and she's like, you were not a match. And I was like, oh. Because I don't remember how I found out, but I knew that you were going to immunocy. And that's like the final step of getting everything checked to be a personal donor. And she was like, she was not a match. And then she's like, but I have greatness. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, good and bad. And she's like, she still wants to donate. And I was like, yes. It was like, I don't know, it's just a relief. I don't know, like, just to know that you still wanted to give just showed like how much, like, that was, to me, that was amazing. Just that you don't even really know me, but you still wanted to donate to me on my behalf anyway. Like, it was good. Like, and my wife ended up getting tested too later on, and I'm not sure exactly how far she ended up getting to in that process. And then they called me about the kidney that was available. Just one thing. It was just like boom, boom, boom. During that time, for me, it felt like Pastor Brad came to the house and he's like, I don't know what you're going through, what's your mind, and I was like telling him, like, I just don't know. Like, my mind is like, I didn't know any of this information, so it was like, it almost felt like, what did I do wrong for this to happen again? Like that's my mind was like, I just don't know. What am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong in life? Or is my faith not good enough? Like, just so many different things going on. And, Brad was like, he told me about his mom. She's had health issues and she's been in the church her whole life. She's faithful. And he's like, we can't explain it. And I'm like, true. But in that moment now, I'm feeling like crap. I don't want to hear that. But it resonated with me because, I didn't even know that his mom was like that. And to know, I'm not the only one. It almost felt like I was, before he came and had that conversation, I felt like, I'm almost embarrassed because here I am, a Christian, and I believe and I'm praying that I be healed, and nothing. It's like, why am I not being healed? Like, I believe. Why am I not doing that? And Brad was specifically saying, like, the Lord will provide the provision that you need. And I was like, and I've heard other things that go along with that after that. Like, almost every sermon that he spoke on, it seems like there was something in that sermon for me. Like, it just spoke to me with the Holy Spirit. It's just like, every single service had something to encourage me, to help me keep going, because, when you're on dialysis, your chemical imbalances, you're all over the place, and nothing is, I don't know if it's that, but mentally and physically, it's exhausting. And to be encouraged, like, every single time that he was speaking, it was very good, and it got me through. I ain't gonna lie. There were certain times that I was down, depressed, I guess you could say. Not much of a depressed kind of guy. I don't worry about much, but during that time, I definitely felt some things going through my mind and stuff.
It was strictly about obedience. Would I obey? As big as this was, and as so far out of my comfort zone. And I wonder, Mike, if complete healing wasn't plan B, that if I had not been obedient and I had taken myself out the equation, God would have said, okay, now on to the next thing. Right. And so I'm sorry you didn't get to experience that, but for me to be obedient, and I just can't tell you what that has done for my relationship with the Lord. Number one, to be given that kind of a task or that kind of an assignment. And then I think, though, every assignment that we get is big. Right. Just to be the encouragement for someone, just today to do the next thing. I don't want, when I'm older and grayer, for it to be, 27 years ago is my latest accomplishment for the Lord. Does that make sense? So I just, for me, the obedience of it, and just knowing that He put enough faith and trust in me has just been the best thing that ever happened with my relationship with the Lord. So thank you for receiving.
Looking at the whole thing now, after everything's done, not living in the moment of it, my perspective was, like, if you're looking at a painting, you're looking up close, you're just looking at one spot of that picture until you stand back and see everything that has gone on. The perspective of it is completely different now compared to when I was going through it. If somebody's going through something, it may not be physical, it might be something completely different, but know that the Lord has your best interest at heart, and He's doing things behind the scenes that we don't even know about, and He might be, working on somebody else to help you, or you to help them, whichever way it may go, but He's always got you in His best interest at heart. And another thing is, a lot of people everybody has tragedy at one point or another in their life. One thing that I know during some of my low points was in my mind was, am I okay with dying, not making it out of this situation? And just thinking in my mind, like, that perspective of this body is just a vessel to make it through this world, and the reward is really on the other side. So when some people say, well, I prayed for healing and this person passed away, or I healing and it didn't come, you think about your perspective is in a box like this, and you have a thing like, this is how it should be done. I was like, reading the Bible, everyone's healed instantly and doing miracles and all this stuff. And I was like, that was my box. I was like, this is what it needs to be. And when it wasn't, it was like, that's when I think I started to question my faith and everything. Like, all these people got healed instantly, and here I am still on dialysis doing whatever I need to do. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? But really, this isn't the end. I mean, He's just preserving me here. But really, a complete healing is only going to happen when I get to heaven. Full body. It's going to be renewed. And just thinking of it in that term, instead of emphasizing so much on everything here, you need to be focused more on eternal things, and just be able to witness the people here so that they can be a part of that as well.
We are all here for a purpose. Sometimes we are on the receiving end, and sometimes we are on the giving end. And sometimes when we give, it goes maybe to this one individual, but the ripples from that, we don't know who it is that we're going to impact. And so while my kidney went to this gentleman in New York, the ripple in his family, my testimony to my family, the impact on your life and your family. So when we give, whatever it is, we just don't know the impact. So keep giving. And when you think it's impossible, go ahead and give anyway.